Spring's the perfect time for big family meals with holidays like Easter and Mother's Day. And Jones Dairy Farm is here to make those big events easier for you. From fully cooked meatballs to naturally smoked ham to out-of-this-world bacon, Jones Dairy Farm has been making mealtimes better since 1889. You can find their high-quality and amazing flavors at most grocery stores, including Costco. Check out their product finder on jonesdairyfarm.com to learn where to find Jones near you. It's easy to sit back and look for good things in the world, but what if we could be the good? Goodman Community Center has been a force for good for over 70 years. Now Goodman wants to challenge you to be the good. What can you do to make our community, our country, and our world a better place? Learn more about how you can be a part of what's good at Goodman at goodmancenter.org. Together, we can strengthen lives and secure futures. Today on CityCast Madison. Madison area students' ability to access affordable, healthy meals at school just got harder. As a part of the Trump administration's ongoing budget slashing, the USDA recently moved to cancel hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for programs that support schools buying food from local farms. To better understand the situation and its potential impacts on our school district, we sat down with Farm to School Director for REAP Food Group, Allison Paff Harris. It's Monday, April 7th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Allison, welcome to CityCast Madison.
Thank you so much, Bianca, for having me on. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for being here. So last month, the USDA slashed a federal program that gave schools money to buy local food from farmers. Schools and childcare providers were counting on about $660 million nationwide in 2025. And here in Wisconsin, the cancellation of the Local Food for Schools Cooperative Agreement Program results in a loss of $9 million. My goodness, Allison, how were schools in our area using these funds for this program? What does this mean?
Yeah, the cancellation of the program is a huge bummer for not only schools and farmers in the state of Wisconsin, but across the country. Here in Wisconsin, we were looking forward to that $9 million coming out of the state to directly support Wisconsin farmers and local produce going into schools. And we know that this program would have been a huge success because a couple years ago, we received $3.4 million through the initial Local Food for Schools program, and it was a huge success. When the Department of Public Instruction evaluated the program, and they were the administrators of the Local Food for Schools program, they found that for every dollar spent, it generated $1 to $2 in economic activity in the area. Schools were excited to be able to serve the produce from farmers in their community. Farmers were excited to be able to grow for their schools. And it was a win-win for all folks involved.
It's interesting. We did have a conversation a couple of years ago with UW-Madison professor Jennifer Gaddis to talk about what was in the news, which was school lunches in the Madison School District, and people apparently making complaints about the kind of food that was available. And then there was this big grant to actually kind of, it had more than one purpose, but one of them is like making the food more nutritional and appealing, I suppose. So that was 2 years ago, and now we're at 2025, and money's getting cut from something that you just laid out with has been really successful. Can you kind of break down like how big of a blow this is going to be to Wisconsin schools?
The funding that we're talking about, the LFS or Local Food for Schools program, or the kind of the rebranded new $9 million funding that Local Foods for Schools and Childcare was given out to states. And so in our state of Wisconsin, it was administered through the Department of Public Instruction School Nutrition Team.
In terms of your role with REAP, does REAP have anything to do with helping administer the sort of connections between farmers and schools to make that funding possible?
Yeah, so REAP Food Group is a nonprofit, and we are based in Madison, Wisconsin, and we've been around over 25 years. And when people ask me, who is REAP and what do you do? I really like to say, like, in a nutshell, we work to connect farmers with their communities, with restaurants, with businesses, and with schools, which is the area that I focus in on. I'm Farm to School Director. I came in 2021. And so for a number of years, REAP Farm to School, we were doing a lot of on the ground action, primarily working in Madison Metropolitan School District. We had Farm to School AmeriCorps who were doing garden-based education and talking with students about the importance of local foods. But as we all know, in 2020, pandemic hit, school shut down, our AmeriCorps program was sunset because we weren't able to get into the classroom. When I came in 2021, it was this opportunity to really reimagine what REAP Farm to School programming looks like. And so because we couldn't get into the classroom and we couldn't do that hands-on education, it was really a time to say, let's get into advocacy work and talk about why this is so important. So a lot of my work at REAP right now is talking about how do we change the system. So I get to talk with folks saying why this local food for schools funding was so important. I also get to talk about another program. It's called the Healthy School Meals for All movement. And so this is another movement that was born out of the pandemic. If you had kids in school in 2020 to 2022, you may remember that all kids ate free school meals. And in 2022, that program ended. That was federally funded and it ended in 2022, and schools had to go back to charging for school meals. But when that program ended, states across the country were like, whoa, we have seen the benefits of no-cost school meals. Our attendance is up. Kids are focusing better in the classroom. There's less disruption. Kids are fed. We're going to introduce no-cost school meal legislation on a state-by-state level. So California was the first state in the country to introduce no-cost school meals. And so far, it's made its way eastward. And our neighbors of Minnesota and Michigan have done no-cost school meals. And so here in the state of Wisconsin, as a REAP food group, along with the School Nutrition Association of Wisconsin, Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin, and Feeding Wisconsin, I get the opportunity to co-lead our Healthy School Meals for All movement here in the state. So REAP in the last couple of years has really gone into this advocacy work and talking with folks about why it's so important to have strong school nutrition programs in order to build strong farm to school programs.
I appreciate that context. Let's back up and talk about like how these food programs work in the first place.
Yeah. So depending on when you went to school, you may have like amazing memories of school nutrition programs or maybe some not so great memories. And I can tell you, I was a former auditor of the school lunch program here in the state of Wisconsin. And there are so many great school nutrition programs doing so many cool things but they don't always shout it from the rooftops, all the cool things they're doing. So I can tell you that if you went out to a few different school nutrition programs today, if you went up to Ashwaubenon near Green Bay, you're going to get lettuce that's grown on hydroponic towers. If you went up to New Richmond, you're going to get beef that is from the local school farm. And if you're down here in the Madison area, Monona Grove School District, just a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated a community dinner, which was highlighting all the different things that they're doing with local foods in their school menu. So we had bean chili featuring local Wisconsin beans, local beef, and a variety of other products from area farmers. But talking about why the local food for schools funding, as well as Healthy School Meals for All, is so important. It's important to understand how these programs work. So school nutrition programs receive their funding from student participation. Okay, so if you have more students eating, more students participating, it's more funding that school nutrition program receives in order to support the ingredients that they purchase, the folks that they hire, that they're employing, as well as the equipment that they can buy. What also happens in reverse is the lesser participation you have, the lower participation you have, the lower funding that you have coming into your program. Kind of basic business sense, but there's some implications here. When you have less funding in a school nutrition program coming in, you have less funding coming in from lower participation, but you still have to buy food, pay your staff, pay for your equipment on that lower amount of funding. So what it happens is that often school nutrition programs will go to more convenience foods, which require less staff. They don't require all the scratch cooking. One of the things that we try to talk about with Healthy School Meals for All is that if you open the door to participation and every student has access for a free meal, I like to compare it to a restaurant, front of house, back of house. And so in the front of house, it's kind of what we're talking about. Every student would eat a free school meal. I like to also talk about what's happening in the back of house, in that you're increasing participation, you're increasing funding that's coming to the school nutrition program, And in turn, that school nutrition program can invest in their staff. They can purchase equipment to do more scratch cooking, and they can purchase those higher quality ingredients. And a lot of those higher quality ingredients come with a higher price tag, a lot of them from local farms. And so we know that if we can do no-cost school meals, we can get more funding for the school nutrition program to grow our programs and really make them the biggest and best restaurants in town.
I love that. It has been a long time since I've had a school lunch, but I've got a lot of strong memories of them and the different things that I'd get, and including breakfast, those combo bars, which are just like, I don't know if they're the healthiest thing, but they're like a ham and cheese breaded. But when we're thinking about school lunches, like what does an average lunch look like for Madison today?
Yeah. So since the 2010s, school nutrition programs are required to offer 5 food components. And I like to tell people the 5 food groups. So every school has to offer a grain, a protein source, a fruit, a vegetable, and fluid milk.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. And it's a really reasonable price.
I try to get that. I'm like, I need this in my life. I need those 5. Yeah.
And it's one of those, it's not only feeding kids, but it's a really great learning opportunity. Students can take what they're learning from the classroom and they go to the cafeteria and they see the same thing in front of them. So they're going from their health classroom, their gym classroom, they're knowing that in order to be able to do the activities they want to do for the day, they need to fuel. And if they're going to they're going to the cafeteria then and finding, fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, fluid milk, they can see the connection there.
So you mentioned, you'd like the school lunches in Madison to be like the best restaurants, right? I think many of us, and especially folks listening to this podcast, they listen to Thursdays. It's a food conversation every Thursday. We talk about farm to table restaurants, that idea. But how do farm to school meals compare to the sort of foods that you would get maybe in a restaurant? Like, how different are they? Is it fancy, or is it just making sure you have those food groups?
Well, it's at the minimum, making sure you have the food groups, but schools can do some really awesome things. So going back to Monona Grove and the community dinner, they're making sure they've got all those food groups offered, but they're doing with local beans and making a great vegetarian chili with local beans. And then when they went to the omnivore chili, they had still the local beans and a local beef. Talking about, program up in New Richmond. I was up there chatting about healthy school meals for all about 1.5 years ago. And then we got to have an amazing school meal. And kind of the fun thing that the school nutrition director did is she didn't tell anyone in the audience that it was a school meal. And then everyone got served. And then she's like, and just FYI, this is what kids have access to every single day. And it was like this beautiful salad bar, beautiful meal, just absolutely awesome. And so schools are able to do this when they have the funding to be able to purchase those ingredients. And so sometimes people ask me, what is the one thing that I can do to help support my school nutrition program in purchasing more local foods and doing more of farm to school? And I'll probably say, well, there's probably more than one thing you can do. But one of the main things is if you have a student in school, encourage them to participate in the school meal program. Now, it doesn't have to be every single day. I know that I was a picky eater. I was also a really shy kid. And for me to have to go up and interact with anyone in the lunch line was just absolutely terrifying. But even if you have a student in school who can participate 1 or 2 days a week, that participation helps to bring more funding to the school nutrition program.
And it's building character. For the
building
shy kids.
Character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get your butt
I still
in
remember
that line. No, in a nice way. You go, girl. You go,
I
boy.
still remember. Totally, 5th grade, because we used to have to be in the morning, be like, are you taking hot lunch or are you bringing a cold lunch? And for every year, it was Allison's bringing cold lunch. And then 5th grade, I still remember when I was hot lunch.
The change.
Yeah, it made me come out of my shell and learn how to talk with people.
Oh my God, I love that. We are talking with Allison Paff Harris, Farm to School Director for REAP Food Group. We'll be getting into more of this conversation around healthy food access in our schools in a minute, but first, let's take a quick break.
This episode is brought to you by the Nissan Armada Pro 4X. With a twin-turbo V6 engine ready to propel your adventures, up to 8,500 pounds of towing capacity to haul all your favorite toys and space for 8 passengers, Nissan's most powerful car yet will chew up and spit out anything you throw at it. Learn more about the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada at nissanusa.com. Towing capacity varies by configuration. See Nissan Towing Guide and Owner's Manual for additional information. Always secure cargo.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
Allison, we're back. And, you mentioned you also work with Healthy School Meals for All Wisconsin, an initiative to make school breakfast and lunch available to all Wisconsin K through 12 students at no charge. I'm someone who had free lunch and breakfast, so I have a pretty strong understanding of why it's important. Why do you think extending free meals to all kids, regardless of their financial need, is necessary?
Everyone needs to eat. And you need a full stomach in order to learn. That's the bottom line of every kid should have access to healthy school meals. It's important for, just in general thinking about better attendance, improved focus, kids feeling full and being ready to learn. Also, a big one is reducing stigma. Right now, our current system, we have this tiered system. It's called free, reduced, and paid. And so if your household income is below a certain level, you can apply for the program and have meals at no cost. If your household income is at a specific income level or less, you can qualify for reduced price meals. And if your household income level doesn't meet either of those thresholds, the students in that household are going to pay for their school meals. Now, on the flip side of that, school nutrition programs receive reimbursement or receive funding for any student meal that they serve. So for a meal that they serve to someone who qualifies for free, that student is going to pay nothing. And let's say for just ease of numbers, I'm going to say $4. The school nutrition program will receive $4 to support covering the cost of that meal, as well as the labor and the equipment and infrastructure. For a reduced price, that student is going to pay, I believe the figure is 40 cents. So then the school nutrition program is going to get $3.60 in federal reimbursement to be able to support that meal. And if you're a student who pays for your meal, you're going to pay for that meal, but you're also going to receive a little funding from the federal government to help support that school nutrition program. And so while it's important to note that who qualifies for free or reduced meals should be not known, it's one of those things that kids are fearful of going through the lunch line and being gosh, what if someone knows that I'm free or reduced? I can tell you that I was an auditor and I would talk with folks who administered programs all throughout the state, and they would say, because there is stigma with applying for free and reduced meal benefits, we have families who don't apply, and therefore their kids are choosing not to eat because they don't have funding in hand to pay for that meal. I've encouraged their household to apply and let them know that information remains confidential, but there's still that stigma. And so if we do no-cost school meals, if we do healthy school meals for everyone here in the state of Wisconsin, that stigma goes away. All kids are able to eat and to learn. And school lunch becomes this place where you can gather and talk and learn to be an adult and learn those skills of conversing with your friends and having a really healthy meal, rather than having it be a time where you might be nervous if someone's finding out if you qualify for free or reduced meals.
And I'm sure you know this very well. The foods that we eat impact our mood, right? And it's true for kids
Absolutely.
too. And I imagine what you're eating is impacting how you can show up in the classroom more than just your own ability to pay attention, but maybe folks might be irritable if they didn't eat, as I am, and that might be disruptive.
Totally. And just hearing that anecdotal evidence from when we had no-cost school meals, teachers were saying, hey, this was really good for my classroom. Really good for my students, really good for my classroom, really good for my learners, which is what we want, right? We want our kids to go to school and we want them to learn. And we're asking them to be there from, 8 to 3. We should be feeding them too.
And we're always hearing about ways like, how can we help our farmers? This seems like a kind of an intuitive way to to help things grow.
Totally, totally. So, I talk about like healthy school meals for all and then this local food for schools funding. And while they're like two different things, they go hand in hand because it's all about feeding kids. Local food for schools, we had the $3.4 million, which was a huge success. And then we went on to that $9 million that we were supposed to receive, and it was cut. And it's a bummer. And one of the things is that school nutrition programs, I talk about increased participation, and then you get more funding coming into the school nutrition program. It's not like that money can be spent on like a new scoreboard for like the football field or for the gymnasium. That funding by regulation has to be reinvested in the program. So that just means like the funding that we have to support our farmers and to support our school nutrition programs, it just goes in this wonderful circle. Like more kids are eating, more funding is coming in the program. That funding then goes to our farmers, which is able to support and grow our school nutrition program.
Now that Wisconsin is facing losing that $9 million, like how are schools going to go about that and feed kids without that money that they're expecting?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we are trying to collect stories and seeing how it impacts each and every school that we work with or that we connect with. One of the things that we are actually planning to do on April 8th in the afternoon is host an open call for folks, for farmers, for school nutrition directors, for elected officials to come and have an open conversation on Zoom and talk about, how the loss of that $9 million coming to the state is impacting their programs and their farms and their businesses. Some schools, because of the way that their funding works out, because they have high enough participation, they're able to keep purchasing those local foods. Other programs, they're like, we loved it, but we just don't have the ability in our budget to keep purchasing those local foods, which typically come with a higher price tag. And why do they come with a higher price tag? It's kind of a couple different reasons. One, they don't have the economy of scale of these large national producers who are producing in huge volumes and shipping their food across the country. But probably more important is, those local farms are taking care of people in their community and they're creating value for people in their community and they're building community. And that comes with maybe a little higher price tag for their high quality products. And so if we can help support school nutrition programs in purchasing from their local farms, it's helping to build really strong communities across the state.
I think there are some people who don't have students in the schools who wonder, like, why should I care about where the school food is coming from?
It's all about building community. And one of the things that, too, I like to highlight about healthy school meals for all, right now it is included in Governor Evers' proposed budget. And we do have a Senate and Assembly bill that have been introduced. And we went back to folks who introduced those bills and we said, there's $148 million price tag associated with healthy school meals for all. And I don't know about you, but when someone says that dollar figure, I'm like, whoa, that's pretty big. But we were like, what does that cost the average taxpayer? And we received the figure that if we were to take that $148 million price tag and share it among all the taxpayers in the state of Wisconsin, it comes to a cost of $60 per the average taxpayer. That is for every student in the state of Wisconsin to be able to eat a free school breakfast and a free school lunch. I don't know about you, but $60, I could easily go spend that on a dinner somewhere here in Madison. So to me, I don't have kids. I would be like, I see kids in my neighborhood. I see them in my community, and I want to be able to support them. And they're our next generation.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear that it's in Governor Evers' bill and that it's going to be coming before the state legislature. It's an issue that you would think would maybe garner bipartisan support, but, these days it's hard to say. Do you know what kind of support this legislation might have?
Yeah, so right now, as far as the bills are concerned, we haven't had any sponsors from the Republican Party, but it's all the more important that people get out and share their stories and also to talk about, school meals and how they work and how they're funded and how they can help communities across the state of Wisconsin. Yeah, I mentioned before, like the largest restaurant in town in most any community in Wisconsin is the school nutrition program. And so if you want to be able to help farmers and help your community and help your students, if you can help your school nutrition programs, It can help so many different people. As far as it being included in Governor Evers' budget, in the month of April, there are 4 Joint Finance Committee hearings happening throughout the state of Wisconsin. And so we're encouraging people to go to those Joint Finance Committee hearings and share their story, or to write in and talk to the Joint Finance Committee about what you want to see in the final budget. It's in the proposed budget. Now it goes to Joint Finance, where they're going to be listening to Wisconsinites about what they want to see in the final budget. And then the Joint Finance Committee works on the budget to make the spending priorities for the state of Wisconsin for the next 2 years. And so we need people to speak up and say, like, hey, healthy school meals for all is important. And also, because this $9 million was cut at a federal level, could we get some funding in the state of Wisconsin budget to be able to support our farmers in selling to schools?
Well, Allison, we really appreciate you making the time and coming on CityCast Madison today. This is a super important topic about getting our kids healthy food and so they can concentrate and supporting our farmers. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me on. So much appreciated.
That's Allison Paff Harris, Farm to School Director for REAP Food Group. As a note to the event Allison mentioned, in partnership with Rooted and Wello, REAP is hosting an open Zoom call tomorrow, Tuesday, April 8th, from 3 to 4 p.m. to discuss the recent funding cuts to the Wisconsin Farm to School Grant Program. Head to our show notes for a registration link. That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with a student or parent in the Madison School District? All right, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care.